Another day, another S23 Ultra leak. If you're a fan of the channel, you know how much I abhor the curved displays, especially on Note devices or the now Ultra devices with the S Pen. I think it's dumb. I think it limits the amount of area that you could have to write with the S Pen, and I don't like it in general. I like flat screen devices in general for stuff, but I think it's especially limiting when you're talking about S Pen or some sort of input device when you have these curved waterfall displays. We'll put the image up. This was Ice Universe again with the S23 Ultra leaks. They're gonna be hot and fast now. They're gonna be all over the place because we're less than a month away from the announcement, at least, of the S23 Ultra. So you're gonna see a lot of leaks, a lot of case designs, all of this. But you see here with the image, what they contend is that the side of a lot of people have picked up on this on Twitter as confirmation that it's a flat display. That kind of, you can see the side of the device a little bit more squared off than this. And you can see here how the S22 Ultra, was a bit rounded, and that one's a bit flatter. So even if it's not a completely flat display, the waterfall effect or going over the side of the phone is going to be significantly reduced to the point where it's in effect a flat display, which is nice. I'm going to pull out two. So here was, of course, the S22 Ultra, the outgoing flagship, but then also one of everybody's favorites, especially mine here on the channel, the Note 9, because this was the one that first tried to alleviate that, because you got a pretty sharp waterfall effect on the Note 9 here when you look at it. And then if you go in, and what they did is, correct me if I'm wrong, if my memory is incorrect here, but what I remembered is that TouchWiz didn't even bother. When you actually brought the S Pen out and said that you wanted to do screen write, it just gave you the entire display. What they came out with One UI, the first version of One UI, was this, where they actually would shrink down the screen image that you wanted to write on, so it would only keep it on the flat parts of the display. As you can see here, it shrunk it down. So you never can have an opportunity to go over the edge with the S Pen when you're writing, because everything's on the flat part. I got the solution. I understood it. I kind of liked it. In some ways I didn't. I didn't like the shrinking down of the image. It made it harder to kind of pinpoint stuff with the S Pen. But I certainly understood why they did it. I would just rather them not have to do it in the first place. But the Note 9 had a particularly aggressive waterfall. They have walked that back in recent years, all the way up to now, we have the S22 Ultra, where it's a bit wider, the display, as you can see here, when you compare them to the Note 9. See how that's a little bit narrower when it comes to the Note 9. Then you have the bezel to take into account there. We have less bezel on the S22 Ultra, but you also have a wider display. So it's not as severe, but it still happens when you go ahead and take the S Pen out. Go do screen on the left side as I try to maneuver around the camera stand and all the rest of it. Please put it back over here. I don't care if I can't have 100 times periscope zoom. I don't need it. You know, I could be a creeper and not be that big of a creeper. I could just buy binoculars at Dick's Sporting Goods for $50. I guess it's the ability to take photos of which or whatever. It doesn't matter. Put the S Pen over here. We don't care about left-handed people. Anyway, so you go ahead and you do the screen write again, and you can see it still does it. And it's a bit more severe because of the fact that there's more space there, but it keeps it on the flat part of the display. So now if they were to go to a mostly flat display, I would like to see them widen that back out to where I didn't have to do that with the screen write. But overall, I just don't like curved displays. I'm over it. I've had it. We've had it for years. It was fancy when it first came out. I remember seeing the Huawei P30. What was the one that had the really, really waterfall curved display? I believe it was the P30 that had the heavy curve on the display. And then later on, then you had the Note with or it might have been around the same time when everybody started doing it. The Note 9 one annoyed me the most. I don't know how many times I would be sitting there trying to circle stuff with friends. I'd have the screen right on, or I'd be doing something else, or the gift maker or something, and you're just falling off here. You're just falling off the edge of the display, and you couldn't accurately, especially when TouchWiz was first around, and they didn't even bother with this solution. You were just trying to get stuff around the circle stuff, and you'd fall off, and it'd just be a mess, absolute mess. So I'm glad that if they address that, it seems like they're going flat across the entire lineup. The S23 Ultra, or the S23 regular, and the S23 Plus should be flat, and I like that trend. I like going back to that. Some of this stuff is cool. the Edge technology, the foldable displays or whatever it happened to be, starting with that S6 Edge, S7 Edge. That was cool stuff. I got it, but it was cool when it was a secondary display, not when it was the actual first display that was curved over. I don't care about this bezel-less effect that it creates, but that was more of a thing. What I liked is when they treated it more like they did the V20 secondary OLED display on the top. That's when it was cool. When you could put your phone down sideways and actually get information across here, when it was folded over enough that it was actually a second display where you could get your stock ticker, your notifications. You could just have it on your desk like this and be able to see stuff on the side. Then we kind of got away from that and made it the entire display, which is when it started getting disappointing for me. You can have it on other phones. The Xiaomi devices, Vivo devices, if you want to have that waterfall effect, the bezel-less effect, kind of the sink-in effect where it just sinks into the background, especially if you have the camera app open or something like that, that's fine. But when you have a device that's specifically meant, or at least in part, a big part of it, to have an input in there, like a pen, then you have to accommodate the pen. You have to make concessions, and I don't even think they're concessions, to facilitate pen input. And that, to me, would be a flat display on the S23 Ultra. So I hope the rumors are true. I've been hoping for a few years, and you can see they didn't want to get rid of it right away because they had invested so heavily in it with this. But you can see just the difference over time between the Note 9 and the S22 Ultra in the severity and how far it will go before it starts to dip. The Note 9 basically started dipping halfway, like partially on the display. It was a lot of display that was curved over the edge, whereas the S22 Ultra gets a little bit further to the edge before it curves over. And if the S23 Ultra takes that a bit further, then that's one other thing. And it could be beneficial because when you're just looking at it, if you're somebody who's happy with your battery life on your S22 Ultra, there's going to be very little reason, I think, to upgrade to an S23 Ultra. I think that's where you're going to be getting the most upgrade is in battery life, performance, all those things, camera stuff, software is all going to be a wash, I think, especially when we don't use performance, the performance that we have on these devices now. That's going to be something. But if they can create another little differentiating factor there, just a little extra something, that if it gets enough people to upgrade from an older device, or if it gets enough people to say, you know what, wasn't thrilled with the battery life, I get another year of updates, if they're offering me some extreme trade-in bonuses, and I get the flat display, a little bit of a design refresh instead of just going with the same exact design, then maybe that's something that draws people in and gets them excited about this. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let me know, do you have an S22 Ultra? Are you done? Are you looking to upgrade? Are you just going to trade it in because of battery life? Or are you done completely? Are you going to a Pixel or an iPhone or something like, or one of the foldables? Let me know down below. Until next time, have that Steve Delicious.